Gadget Past as Future is a surreal Japanese point-and-click adventure game originally released in 1993 by Synergy Interactive under the name Gadget Invention, Travel, and Adventure. It has since seen multiple different releases under different names and inspired a handful of supplemental DVDs and novels. Past as Future is a visually enhanced 4-disc remake that was released 4 years later for Windows and PlayStation, and recently for mobile devices. Just like the first time it was released, a handful of people were deeply moved by the game's interesting take on a dark, Kafka-esque future, and a larger majority probably fell asleep or didn't know it existed. What few modern reviews there are for Gadget describes it as weird and dusty, and though it is a self-proclaimed interactive movie, it was often compared to other more traditional adventure games, which may have been unfair, just like my trial. Gadget has a very ambiguous story that is probably fleshed out with supplemental materials, but I think this game should have been all that was needed to understand this game. The story takes place in a drab, Art Deco, vaguely Eastern European future, where retro technologies such as old-fashioned trains have become integral to daily life. Much like the writings of Franz Kafka, there is a shadowy government senselessly leading its people into ruin, and a group of anarchists fighting a losing battle for change. It opens with a cutscene, a day 18 years before the end, as presumably the main character gives an incomprehensible monologue about how it's too late now and nothing matters. You control a nameless government agent, tasked by a mysterious man named Slowslop to track down a rogue scientist named Horselover. I can see where one would dwell on the names, but I'm gonna breeze right past that. A radio in your hotel room warns that scientists have detected a comet that's on a collision course with Earth. The dictator of this fictional country, Orlovsky, is trying to suppress this information and views these scientists as terrorists. So you head out to find this Horselover guy and step into an elevator. A red-headed ghost boy in the elevator takes your suitcase and replaces it with one that looks the same but has different contents. This doesn't seem to bother you, and no words are exchanged. If you're already confused, don't worry, because the first 5 minutes sums up how you'll feel for the entire duration of the game. It's evident from the start that everything in this world is strange. People speak in awkward, half riddles. There doesn't seem to be much more to this place than uniform buildings and cathedral-like railway stations, with dim, oddly colored lighting and sparse decoration. It's unnerving. It feels like a nightmare. I sort of like this. I mean, all these people are void of character, sure, but the atmosphere is made so tense by them. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Just empty vessels lumbering around, waiting for you to slip up. This is just one nitpick of mine, but I wonder why there are no women in this world, and only one child? Who am I gonna spy on at parks? Though it was admirable to introduce creepy dystopian environments into video games, in the vein of movies like Kafka and Brazil, it's an experience that must grow tougher and tougher to sell to people. Nothing about this is marketable. Millennials aren't gonna appreciate this. It's a fossil, and not even like a super obvious cool one like a raptor skull. It's like the pelvic girdle of an Archaeopteryx. But if you're anything like me, you can use knowing about this game and how neat it is as a way to fuel ostentatious interactions with people. You're gonna feel so cool. There is none. Okay, sorry, for the sake of review accuracy, I will talk about the gameplay. There is none. You're so trusting of me, you shouldn't be. Gadget looks and controls like a first-person point-and-click adventure game, but it is far too linear to be shoved into that category. While you can certainly control your character and interact with objects, everything you do is sort of meaningless until you find the one person to talk to or item to pick up that will advance the plot. It's not likely you'll ever get lost or turned around, and it's relatively fast-paced because of how simple the gameplay is. You aren't even given access to your inventory. If the player character needs an item, just keep clicking and he'll bring out his suitcase, select the item, and use it. They don't even let you backtrack. If you find the person you're supposed to talk to in an area, there is usually a cutscene of you frantically running to the next train. I didn't mean to sound like I was complaining about a lack of backtracking. More like it's silly that instead of backtracking, you watch yourself backtracking at breakneck speed. I mean, you could have just like smash cut to a train leaving. I don't think anybody would have questioned it more than they'd question anything in this game. Oh, god damn it. Looks like I won't be able to run this shit on Ultra. Even though Gadget is a visual dinosaur, its style is still the strongest quality it has. The expressionist take on a gloomy, industrial, and borderline Soviet nation is still pretty striking, if anything just because of how unique it was. There are some genuinely unsettling moments in Gadget, thanks to the strange and distorted lighting and how lifeless everyone looks. They do a good job of making you feel oppressed. Even though the visuals might be my favorite part of the game, it's also the source of my biggest issue, which is the heavy use of cutscenes. I swear at least 80% of this game is cutscenes of trains leaving or arriving. I am not at all exaggerating. I don't like trains this much. Ain't nobody like trains that much, except for Haruhiko Shono. That's the guy that made the game. There were long stretches where I was just sitting back, watching trains for what seemed like forever. The music is composed by Koji Ueino. I have no idea if I said that correctly, but I said it with confidence, and I think that's all that's important. And it still stands out pretty well. It's not common for a video game to have such an unconventional soundtrack. The sporadic avant-garde jazz that accompanies this game is completely fitting in how ill-fitting it is. It perfectly conveys how uncomfortable and unpredictable this world is. It's not something I would recommend blasting at parties, but I could say the same about anything else I listen to. Although maybe I should, because between you and me, most of my social gatherings can be sort of grim. Can't you find someone and put it in and say it for Despite my lukewarm opinion of Gadget, many hold this game in very high regard, and even put it in the same sentence with words like masterpiece and groundbreaking. I think it's absolutely deserving of praise for its original ideas and unique style, but I think it's still not a very fun or emotional experience. It's the video game equivalent of staring at a beautiful painting for a few minutes and drinking it in with quiet contemplation before moving on to the next one. I think it's a great experiment with awesome influences, but I certainly don't love it as much as Guillermo del Toro does. I also wouldn't attribute the style of The Matrix or Dark City to an obscure Japanese PC game. I mean, The Matrix, to me and everybody in the world, was very transparently inspired by Ghost in the Shell, Alice in Wonderland, and Christianity. Dark City was a mixture of long-established film noir themes from the 1940s and probably Greek mythology. All three have Kafka-esque influences, but that is a pretty big stretch if you ask me. Anyway, Gadget is cool, but I probably wouldn't revisit it, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you're into some really out there and strange stuff. It has a well-crafted and creepy atmosphere, and a barely coherent story, but the parallels to stuff I already like were enough to keep me interested. Gameplay is minimal, and with the exception of one very brief puzzle towards the end, completely linear. If this looks weird, it's because it is. I love that this game exists, but I can't pretend to understand it as deeply or be affected by it as deeply as some others out there. I can't watch the supplemental Gadget stuff and say, yeah, I understand this. I understand what the purpose of this is. This makes total sense to me. Yeah, guys floating around in dark waters. One guy's got a camera. I'm limited to what I felt during my time playing it, and I was mostly just in awe of how cryptic and weird it was. And then I got a little bored of watching trains. Maybe I don't get it, or maybe there isn't much to get. This is expressionist. This guy was making fucking Faust over here while we were all making XXX3. Okay, so I guess they are making XXX3. That was a joke, but I guess so is the movie industry.